If you're here to learn about AI and AI agents, and if you're still already not heard enough about AIs, you're in the right place. But then let's get started. So first thing I'm from premise is that this is not about AI, right? This is about one particular problem that we are solving using AI. When you will understand patterns of how we are applying this, I did the same intro session last Insights. That is more about learning about large language models and stuff. So this is a first real implementation of artificial intelligence in the plan. So that's what we're talking about, our experience of what we learned during the process. This is all new. So this is pretty overwhelmed. This is quite normal. But we'll go through that. But I should start with this guy talking to you. My name is Deepak Babu in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, based in Iowa. Please, by all means, whatever is relevant for you, feel free to take pictures. But for the way these slides will be available, I will try my best to publish the video also. So we'll have to feel overrun that you have to take every piece of the note, right? So I just wanted to give you the summary access. I had an agricultural session and I want to understand what is this thing talking about. And if you are here, I need a font to just off it. That's it, right? This is what you're going to talk about. If you're sitting here, you want to understand what's the reality, what is the reality of the AI in 2026, and how are we dealing with in real implementations that you're thinking about. I guess that you need some place to start. We thought the customer service is the easiest thing in the sense that you're dealing with tables, and that portion of that interaction can be enabled using artificial intelligence to an extent that it is connected to your ERP, but there's still this connection of that you could, Stacy, like your data system is secure and you can do. So the core point is, these are the things we will be covering about, right? The reality of 2016, what are the common things that you heard before here? Classic UI is the type. And so you heard it from everyone. Those who are on-premise, you are at a place that you have to think. Is it going to cloud, or can I stick around and wait for what everyone has to say? Again, you know what next, right? So people have about 4 million people in the last 2-3 days. Some people are saying, oh, I can see that's one of the can. And then I think I have people saying, okay, I have no choice, but I have to go tomorrow. So there's people in all different states in adoption too. But the fact is, they have announced the retirement of classic UI. It does impact most of the on-premise users for sure. Right? So, if we think about when we talk about service, this is about customer service. Customer service, imagine you are a manufacturer. Of course, you don't have to imagine, we all are manufacturers of something. So in our case, this was for Woodway. I should have found with that. Woodway is a terminal manufacturer. It's not just any terminal manufacturer. They make the terminals that are very efficient and towards highly engineered made-to-order kind of terminals that are usually used by all the large divisions and all the funnel finance and all those kind of things. So these are engineered to have extreme levels of performance for prepare people for that. So what happens when you do these kind of things is that you come across very unique kind of scenarios. Customers will ask, hey, this thing is not working. What do I do? How do you handle it? And you would need somebody to listen to a customer who's asking about the question and then does that. So that takes a human being to answer that question. So we are trying to see if that human interaction can be reduced to an extent, but then there is after that, you can use your Epicor's case flow management to handle the case process. Okay? So best of the world works. That's what we're trying to accomplish with this. So, and also the fact is AI adoption is still fragmented. People are still figuring out where to apply AI. Those data users are Prism and some phrase. They're also trying to figure out where to apply it correctly on what's the right levels to apply all these things. So you also figure out along with the code platform of this is I was telling you about that when we talk about, manual, so every interaction, it's a human interaction. Sometimes there's a call, an email saying, hey, something is wrong with this. This is the common process of what you do. Second is this is all text. somebody saying, explaining what the problem they're dealing with in a particular product. So that data information that's coming in, there is no form to people to fill up, or even if there's a form, they will just type in whatever they feel is that, right? There is no standardized approach for their data collection. So that's the big thing. And then second point is also field service. When you say field service, these are customer service technicians who show up on the customer's doorstep and take care of them. It's most of the cases they are external. They don't have access to ERP, they don't have access to getting Woodway's track all the system or anything. They just get a call. Okay, go to the bank and fix this terminal. The same goes with service technicians. They receive a call, they go handle the call. Yeah. But they also need some connection. What is the terminal we are dealing with? Before they get there, we want to understand what serial number is this from the serial number, if I understand what product are you dealing with, and see if I can understand the issue correctly. ERP is meant to be a system of record, right? This is when all the transactions happen. But it is, in this particular use case, it's underutilized because it's shortable because of all the initiative reasons that I. And that is really clear. Response times, scalability, customer experience, all these kind of these things need to, but you can understand where I'm going with this. So, having heard what is happening with Epicor and these kind of problems you're dealing with, what can you really do? Right? That's with what you have right now. If it is on-prem, you obviously don't have Prism. You obviously don't have any of those things. So what is realistically possible? Right? That's the VR. So at this point, let's try if we can do a small dance, right? If you are on the form or laptop or anything, by all means, verify it. This is the standard interface. Just go to shop.woodway.com or go to woodway.com and the customer service page, and you end up here. It starts something like this. You'll say, start a conversation or continue with the previous case number that has been here to customer. So I'm going to start a conversation. So let me start with saying hello. Okay. Simple. And one thing I want to notice is how fast the response is. It's maybe slightly different from what you may have experienced from ChatGPT responses. The second thing is, I'm going to try something else. So, sorry, is there a question? Let's go something literally, and let's say something, I don't know, the appropriate word. I will try to explain that we have put in some of these guardrails on top of it. So, anyway, you can play around with it. Find some interesting things. But so the creative implemented, it is meant to be a tool. If that you could actually use, it's not meant to be a ChatGPT wrapper for that. And you're not even using ChatGPT for this purpose. You're using levels of the LLMs on the backend. So the couple of problems that LLMs large language ones have to deal with it. Number one, the prompt has to be correct. Number two is that token first have an impact on how much token for boss. People may not care too much about it now, but that's how hard it's come. Right? That would matter. So we built around this, having some sort of guardrails to make sure that profanity first is addressed, or things like that, it will be addressed. And on top of it, we're using technology where we build the knowledge trees based on what we already have. And so effectively, this is not going to LLM for list databases. It is built in a way that you would be using for those who are technically inclined, so we collect a database. So that's why the response is much more faster than what you will expect from a typical. Anyway, that's all this technical details class full of through more details. So why and how we thought about how to implement this? Like one of the data points explains that when we put together the initial demo, it took us 2 hours to build the initial demo. Obviously, we are also using AI extreme levels to build stuff. But to implement it, it took us 9 months. So that's what it takes, because there is volumes of things you need to consider. There is many different decisions you need to run to actually make it functional, make it function as a proper tool. Right? Build towards, what does that even mean? So ERP is your system of record. Your data statements, right? And this doesn't do that. But you could actually use AI as an interface. People are already familiar with using ChatGPT to pass all kinds of keyword like also impressive these days. So people are starting to adopt that idea of any rule need to fall for everything. Maybe I'm going fast, right? This is starting to take root, and people are starting to accept that approach. So use AI as an interface for people. It's not very convenient. It has all kinds of problems, but it's where everything is going. So I guess we are moving in that direction to improve upon building that. The core principle is exactly the same, right? We're designing for a world where we will be using AI for a lot of these functions, right? There's just no use to anybody around here. You all have heard enough about AI. So anyway, this is our approach, our thinking towards how we decide to make this. Now, the core solution architecture would look something like this. Of course, the Epicor Kinetic and Woodway states we are on-prem. I don't know for sure when we will be run to the cloud, but yes, it is still on-prem. So this, how these things are, right? So core idea is that Epicor Kinetic is on-prem. That's the reality today. So what we did was we built this website and AI engine that lives on an external location. It's our website, probably AWS in our case. Of course, you can put it in Azure or whichever cloud that you choose to do preference possible. There is one of the important things to know is that this is not just a chatbot. Chatbot is just one of those interfaces that is meant for customer input. Then there is also a completely different interface meant for that's the mobile app. This is publicly available on our store. You will come to search for Woodway service. You will find this app on Woodway. And their access to that app is controlled by our internal service department. So if you are signing up as a service technician, you will get an account. Okay, this is working with you. And we will have access to a little bit more technical details about how to handle a service call. You do not want that information to be available for general users. You don't want general users to change the service code something and the system celebration start in. So those are you need people who are trained service technicians to access the engine, to have a different set of data that's available for them in addition to general information. And plus also, that's how we built this. So you can dispatch a technician, you have the technician will be able to create a key, look up a case, and then follow through what has been discussed before. So that's why I said this is not just a chatbot. This is a chatbot. There's a mobile app. Mobile app also has a chatbot interface and could start asking, but in this case, the information that's available through the mobile app is more service technicians focused and control in that. Obviously, the last one is for those who are future Epicor or you're still experimenting with it. First API is the technique that we use is for connecting to the Epicor ERP. But there is a twist to that. The twist is that, maybe that's a slide later, but I'll talk about that. We will talk about that at detail. The website plus AI agent, right? Natural language, customer intent. The first step of the problem is to understand what is the customer here for? Is he talking about he wants to be a solid problem? Is it just a feedback for he wants? What is the view? What do we fancy do? Right? That's the first step of function, understand. And if you implement with something like this, the customer intent classification, we change this architecture 3 times about the product. So I'm telling you this how complicated this process is. So second part is about automated service intake. So if you're creating a face, now you don't need somebody in the customer service department to start typing in all the details while listening to the phone and then accidentally miss something. The customer is exactly saying what they're trying. And when it gets to the customer service agent, this person will look through that and say, oh, this is the case, and this is what the agent of the AI is on the attempter. Now it looks like he needs this part. He may or may not even call the customer. Sometimes he even not, because this technician is far more efficient in handling that kind of problem. So that's what it is. When I say this AI agent, there is 2 parts to that, right? One is the chat interface that you see in the website. There is also a connection that is running, an agent that's running on-prem. This on-prem agent is using SSE technology, so it's called to talk to the agent, that's the case creation. The case creation process somehow has to end up having locally, right? So this agent that is running on-prem takes care of that. So this is LLM call that for the chat interface just saying, here's create this case. Goes to this agent that is on-prem, creates the case, give me a case number. The case number comes back, reports to the customer. So this is how this actually is working. But the big thing about this agent is that this agent that is running on-prem is extremely limited. The only two things this agent can do is that they can create a case, look up a case. That's it. Right? So it's limited, and it is limited to the point that if you want to look up a case, there are two things that we need. What's your email address and what's your serial number of the channel? This kind of justifies that this is a real genuine customer. Okay, these are all things that we need to consider if you're implementing things like that. So anyway, so that's the agent. I think I already covered this, but I think our integrations, so we do these are three things: case creation, case validation, capabilities. So one additional thing that opened up with this implementation is that Woodway sells channels in multiple countries. So we have Germany, we have Australia, we have so many different countries where they sell. Their time zones don't match what we have in customer service. So it suddenly opened up the opportunity for the service technicians to ask questions when the customer service is not available. And the other side, so expanding the ability and the time zone availability of our customer service process. So that's what it means by the 24/7 hours. So in some cases, it's extremely important, right? And sometimes you may, if you are, like I said, what various customers are usually extreme or very high-end gyms and stuff, right? They expect and demand a very high level of customer service. And so, which means that they need to be able to adjust that. But there's limitations on this one company. We have limitations on how many people are able to staff the 24/7 customer service department. So anyway, so this expands the opportunity, leveraging AI to do some of these initial stuff at the same time, properly balancing the concerns around data that's going on separately. We are dealing with just one case. So since we are dealing with those data also very secure, I think as far as we can say, this is the closest we have come in terms of bridging the gap. That's what. Yeah, we covered this a little earlier. What can technicians actually do? This is a mobile app. So in case of service technician, these are some of the capabilities that service technicians are able to do. They can use a job. They have been assigned the job. They can meet the steps. Once they get there, we open up the box and then they realize, oh, this is what we should be initiated in the field thing, and I'll take care of. And that instantly that information comes back and gets recorded in video. And it can capture notes. And this says, and all those fields everything, but all do that. And most importantly, there won't be information lost in transit. That information is coming from authentic source. In most cases, this information does not even make it back to the customer service, so that is not even available. Here we have now access to the information, not only access, but also more relevant information that available at the data. Gives them lock or ability to build things from it. So end-to-end workflow, how does this look like, right? Before, it was customer, email, anonymity, and delays, installable. So now, in the new world, we're talking about customer, an AI agent, and automatically creating a case. What can I say? Create a case, and it will open up a case. I'll show the demo if you're interested. And then it's saved the data. What does it actually result in, right? Again, this has been out only for past 18 months, but we have seen clear indications that we will have this kind of results, and that's what we're looking for. And it's the lead, and so I have to preface that. So, anyway, the question is why? Well, it will get you started into the Prism. It's still maturing, and first of all, you don't have access to it. And then you learn how to adapt these kind of things. You will get you to the path of entering data and clear understanding about how you're going to be adapting it. Everybody is going through this change. You don't believe that you overall. Everybody is going through this kind of change about how the users are interpreting the what kind of problem you're dealing with. It's part process. So even if I don't believe Epicor hasn't all figured out either, right? We are also experimenting with the hundreds of these things. So what the marketing department says and what the technical department says for me, I'm thinking, well, either way, and they're all figuring it out. Like, it's not just them. Even this is a new technology. Everybody's trying to figure out how to do it. But this is the logic we test here. These are about it. Security architecture, we explained it a little earlier that they use the API gateway to, and a middleware to have this organization and successful. And then for direct database exposure. AWS is only an API layer. There's a layer on top of the API layer, which means nobody is outside is able to access the REST API that is running within. So this is the agent is the only one that can talk to the backend chatbot, and agent takes care of translating that information. I believe this actually makes sense because this is only layer code, and this is simple. This is an entry point, and it's at least you can get immediate value from what you see here. Full migration obviously is expensive and costly. The incremental customer awareness, what it means is that you are trying to adapt to how customers are looking at it. Customer now obviously looking at ChatGPT. First thing nowadays, everybody who have a problem will open up ChatGPT and ask, right? But the problem is that ChatGPT doesn't have any of your answers about Woodway, and they will never have it because this is very professional. The same goes with many of your parents, right? They will not have access to it. So you need some AI that training the knowledgeable about your products, your product, what you do in the sense, possibly address some. So that's the expansion. So in summary, we covered all of these things. AI is available on-prem with connecting with this set of enablers. This is not something you cannot build it yourself. You're welcome to live. It will take a bit of effort, but this already exists. You don't need to rebuild the field able families, but follow the structure. Learn from what we have learned, then you can build it faster than what we. So I think I covered most of the things here. So let me pause here and ask any thoughts, any ideas, any concerns. Yes, any questions.
In one of the slides, you saw the reductions in time and stuff like that. How about the customer satisfaction compared to before using the AI versus after?
We don't have the data yet. We are capturing all of it. We are capturing all the transactions. One thing I did not show is that there is a landing interface where this user account is confirmed. We are watching every transaction, every discussion that's happening, how frequently it's being utilized, and we are building up more intelligent data on that. We don't have the data to actually tell you where was that question.
Before you jumped in and built these on-prem solutions, what sort of policies or frameworks did leadership come together and start outlining these things, or did some engineer just start building something and then it kind of fell into this situation, or what was the strategy for at the beginning of this?
Yeah. If leadership comes together and builds something, gives you a direction, that's an interesting idea, but they will also put a tagline, okay, how much money did you pay, how much money did you do? Well, this becomes quite a cheaper. To answer, look, you have to start with the problem. What is the problem? In our case, yes, we started out with the potential problem. What are the full problems you can address with this technology? Expansion of the customer service, reducing the effort it takes for looking at these problems. So we focused on real challenges. That's how we started building the concept around how to put together a solution with influence. Was that a question?
I think so.
Did you use any technicians to train the LLM?
Technicians, no. So in this case, this is based on the information that we have service bulletins that kind of give you the information that is needed for the technicians to add. But they do have a capability to add additional knowledge. So as additional information gets better, there's a clear process of how to get information to service technicians. But so that is the thing. And in many cases, what happens is service technicians will have an outdated manner about dealing with something like this. This handles all of those problems. Once this is released, in dealing with this problem, your service technician will have the most updated information about whatever things is. And we will have the ability to add additional knowledge. For picking, this is the first attempt, and we're getting in the race and we're getting a lot of feedback and figuring out. And also, like, we are also figuring out allowing triggers and how to address. So I don't know how the answer providers have with us. And somebody had here from your question. Yes.
How you get it?
how I did this. So this was built custom. So effectively,
Secured for is there?
no, yeah.
He's still waiting to this.
Your question is that this was you're asking about the technical architecture. After this, you're welcome to stop where I'm happy to explain. It may not be too relevant for everybody, but I'll explain. We are using Python as a backend. The front end is React. This is not necessarily what you may see from many other Epicor's proposed ideas, but this is the fastest way to get it. And part of it is built using AI's support. The data for source of the data for this is manuals, publicly published manuals for users, and the other service technicians' manuals. So we publish those manuals right now to an external site, and that was the source of information. We're not using previous knowledge or trying to gain. So you could absolutely say, if I could go back and look at case history for 2 years and collect the data and cleaning up the data and see what happens, this is all viable solution, but I cannot guarantee that information is accurate. It takes, if you come up with something, it still has to go for somebody to go and verify, yes, this whatever they say. Sometimes LLMs do hallucinate, right? I'm sure you've heard this one. So expecting that you can rely on the details, developers, not necessarily a practical tool. So which is why we had to adopt on what will be our current plugging into our current method. What is our current method? So technicians, bulletins are created based on what we understand from the engineering changes, as well as what we understand from the new models and releases and stuff like that. And that is what we key to. This is how we approached it. So we did not do the approach of going the versions, getting into collecting all the data and cleaning up the data, and then we can get into completely different.
You mentioned for your on-prem agent that it was restricted to really only 2 functions. How did you go about setting those guardrails? Did you make an on-prem MCP server to where the only tools it had available were those 2 tools, or what was your approach to set those guardrails on the on-prem agent?
First of all, it's not an MCP server.
Okay.
Yes, this is MCP server, but you do not know it's a common standard that is used by LLMs to respond. Of course, we can create an MCP server. No questions about it. We could have created it. It's as easy as creating anything else. But we found it's much more easier to just give it an agent to just respond using JSON. So that's the response. You can just query and give the data in response and then handle it. So to answer your direct question, no, we're not using MCP server.
Okay.
But we could, as we learn, if at some point, if we need to use an MCP server, it could go in that route, but as of now, there's no need for it. This is far more faster and more effective.
And it's faster and more effective because you have such a limited tools and restrictions for it that you can just say that this is it instead of like putting all those tools and resources in an MCP server that has to run. And,
yes.
Okay.
So one thing you may need to understand is MCP server has to turn around and call your ERP into the context. Then on top of it, inform tokens, because MCP server will also take tokens and top of it.
Yep.
Here it's a direct call. I can call it on the law as if what costs me is a additional token. And if I need to bring it to my context to review the data, yes, by all means, I can give it to you. You could use JSON, and we also experimenting with something called JSON, which is like JSON, but it's more akin to this LLM process. But either way, we are dealing with a small subset of data. There is no real value in converting that into an MCP server as of now. And then we become far more effective and a lot more agent gets added. At some point in time, we can go in that route. But as of now, a limited use case, this works.
Gotcha.
And it's far more effective than right now HDL tokens.
And how are you choosing which ERP data to sync? Or are you just syncing relative data to those service calls or case entry?
We have syncing in it.
Oh, I thought you said there's an ERP sync that to the mobile app.
Yeah, but that is real time.
Oh.
Okay. So from the mobile app, you're requesting for something. The agent turns around, asks the ERP, and sends it back.
Oh.
So it's in view of them. As this is maybe a 10-second delay or something for this whole transaction to happen. But that
For security reasons, I'm sure you've thought about that, but is it vulnerable to injecting prompts somehow to cause your AI to call the ERP in a malicious way somehow?
Very good question. Very real concern. So what we have done we have two levels of controls. Number one, before that one, the first classification of intent classification, in saying what is the customer's intent. Once we understand and classify the intent, you can do that. There's a pipeline of process that has to happen to accomplish this thing. If let's say if it's incorrectly applied, that's a real possibility. Then it provides the additional context that is coming from the data that we already have recorded in our intelligence. Add these two things together, we send the information to a large language models. Large language model will provide something called as context and confidence levels and stuff. Then we can combine them together to actually create the form. So that's how we generating, that's the internal architecture of how this works. So you have two levels of guardrails, one in before and one after. LLMs do hallucinate too, right? Sometimes it's not one time alone, it's just what you're sending to LLM is not sufficient. You also have to consider what's coming back from LLM, and also the agent is limited in only doing that. So no matter what you send the agent, it's going to come back with a response in the return match response, right? That's all it is. Because the agent, if I provide it a direct first API interface, you are opening up the entire thing for them. This is why that middle layer controls that process of access to the backend in a very trusted and efficient way. That's how I feel.
Yes. Well, question. I'm assuming, as you said on-prem, I'm assuming you're using one of the open source along the open source thing. How did you, because that's another question. How safe are these? How can you vet them and make sure that you're using the right one in that doesn't have vulnerabilities? Don't see in that reply.
So first of all, we are not running a small language model, no language model locally, right? And we're not using ChatGPT either. We are using OpenAI's model. So there is a tier of model system. That's how we adopted it. So we are using multiple models in that process to respond in terms of how much least token usage kind of thing. That's how we optimize that. You're concerned about security, that what are you sending into the LLM and what are you worried about? Are we going to try it? This is that one piece of information is all that getting. Next time it's getting somewhere else. So there is not a lot of data that you can actually utilize for anything relevant. At some point in time, you will continue to improve upon it. If we might consider that putting a small language model and making it to operate through that, but those are all future ideas. For now, like I said, we're running up 1 GB of RAM. You can use all the forms of fast space. So efficiency, token usage, and something to start. And that's where we are.
This word line with mod. Involving so they will be certain.
I am with you on that. But here's the point. I am not sending them any customer information from AI. I will be sending them what will the customers ask, what were they asking about, and the context information about pieces that is already public knowledge. So it is public information, but so it's more condensed, and that's all I'm sending. I'm not sending any data that's in my ERP. Because after that, I get the response. Now I tie that to the response to my local agent that actually talks to ERB and gets in the context of what customer it is and whatever. That's never going to any LLM. That's exactly why I send them. You're not using LLM in the way Microsoft or the other players are trying to push you towards. I'm claiming that ChatGPT is going to honor their petition that your customer data will be secure. Yes, you will believe it when you see it, but you are going to use your data. So this is how we control. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
They answer all the questions and also
Person word.
absolutely you're not sending any customer data to the LLM. In most cases, just the vector databases handles most of those ones. About, I think the number is around 70-80% cases. The last one I saw, I'm having to show you the admin interface that live tracks the amount of handle that is handled through that, which is why it's far more faster and it doesn't even go to the LLM. It is completely within a local database. So you're making a query into the local database to supposedly match the response that you need to send. But then in those cases where the confidence level is not enough, you're still dealing with those scenarios. So to give you a perspective, in 3 months, our API usage was 43 cents. So you can imagine what is possible with that. That's how much we are actually using. But I did not tell you when we built it, we had to use fucking $10 at the time to aggregate the data and to clean up the data. If you have to completely rebuild it, yes, there may be some data that we may use for, and so they would. But that's one time. We're not going to be using the initial one, just a small increment. We are not sending volumes of data into any of the large language models. We are learning, but really are paying attention to our. This is the kind of thing that DeepSeek is actually doing. So why their models are far more effective is because they are learning from these large language models and building their subset. And that's why it's not good for what OpenAI has to spend. When into the dollars to build stuff, and they make it for fraction of the cost. But this area first, this is how we are making the data that we need to make it simplified and at the same time being low cost as possible.
Last question. And then all of your data then is all in MongoDB vector database that it's referencing or using that to try to build or find its context to return back to the user?
First of all, you're not using MongoDB. Okay. This environment is evolving at a very fast rate. In fact, it can be with worker database or whatever. We have a Postgres database that handles some of the transactions and also we using files. But this, we are not using MongoDB. It completely overflows, not fully attempted. Like you said, the core objective is to keep cost effective of workflow. Yeah, there is hundreds of levers that we need to tune to make sure that the responses is accurate enough. You are handling all the proprietary filters and all the font hallucination filters and all of those filters to make sure that it is fast and accurate. So, and that's what it is. If you can handle with what you already have in the database, then nobody's at the good job. So that's the under that approach we do. Okay. Right?